To get the green light on that one. Okay. That all looks green. Just to remind everyone, we are beyond this meeting that we see here. We're out to the world on YouTube Live. And the meeting is yours now, Mr. Beagle. Let me know if you need anything.
Very good. Thank you, and welcome everybody to the regular City Council meeting scheduled for Tuesday, June 23rd, 2020, 7 p.m. for Michigan Executive Order 2020-75. It's a virtual Zoom meeting. Can we all rise for the Pledge of Allegiance, please? Pledge allegiance
to the flag of the
United States of America,
to the republic,
which it stands,
one
nation,
under
under
God,
God, indivisible,
liberty.
with
liberty and justice for all.
for all.
Thank you. Madam Clerk, can we do a roll call, please?
Mayor Beagle,
Present.
Deputy Mayor Resnick,
Present.
Councilmember Behrman,
Present.
Councilmember Gotchall,
Here.
Councilmember Grenlin Fox,
Here.
Councilmember Sharp,
Here.
Councilmember Smiley,
Here.
quorum present.
Thank you. City Manager, do we have any changes or additions to the agenda as presented tonight?
Just a corrected resolution document that's to be attached to new business number 13 in lieu of the one that was originally provided.
Okay, thanks. I believe we all got a copy of that, correct?
Correct. I believe it was sent out. Hopefully everybody received it. Yes.
All right, very good. And I have one addition to the agenda under new business number 1. I'd like to add the reappointment to the Planning Commission of Sandro Grassi for a 3-year term ending on June 30th, 2023. All right. Next up is the approval of minutes. The first set of minutes is the special city council meeting of June 9th, 2020. Do I have a motion?
So moved.
Support. Any questions, comments? Deputy Mayor Resnick?
Yes, on page 4, third paragraph, my comment of needing to implement a regular schedule, I said I was in favor of the full-time model. What I'm saying is the complete staffing of the fire barn, not necessarily with full-time employees, but having that fire station staffed full-time for the gaps.
Okay, thank you.
Any others? Seeing none, I got a motion and a second to approve the minutes of the special city council meeting of June 9th, 2020. Roll call vote, please.
Deputy Mayor Resnick,
Aye.
Councilmember Behrman,
Yes.
Councilmember Gotchall,
Yes.
Councilmember Grenlin Fox,
Yes.
Councilmember Sharp,
Aye.
Councilmember Smiley,
Aye.
Mayor Beagle,
Aye.
7 yes.
Thank you. And then next set is the set approval of minutes for the regular city council meeting of June 9th, 2020. Do I have a motion?
So moved.
Support.
Any corrections, additions, deletions? Seeing none, I've got a motion and a second to approve the regular city council meeting minutes of June 9th, 2020. Roll call vote, please.
Councilmember Behrman,
Yes.
Councilmember Gotchall,
Yes.
Councilmember Grenlin Fox,
Yes.
Councilmember Sharp,
Aye.
Councilmember Smiley,
Aye.
Mayor Beagle,
Yes.
Deputy Mayor Resnick,
Aye.
7 yes.
Thank you. We have no correspondence tonight. The next item is the first call to the public. The first call to the public is limited to 5 minutes per speaker, addressing agenda items only. The public shall address the council during the call to the public, which shall be included on the agenda immediately after correspondence, again, immediately after new business. The first call to the public immediately after correspondence shall be limited to agenda items only. A person shall not address the council in excess of 5 minutes unless time extended by a majority vote of council present. Persons wishing to address the council tonight shall identify themselves and their place of residence and shall state their reasoning for addressing the council. And all councils made by all comments by the public shall be made directly to the council. And since this is a Zoom meeting, if you're an audience member, there's two ways you can ask to have your call to the public heard. You can do a *9, *9 on your phone, or press the raise your hand part on the computer. With that, do we have anybody for the first call to the public?
We do, Mr. Beagle. So phone number with the last 4 digits of 0828. We will unmute your line. And again, please state your name and address for the record. Go ahead, caller.
Thank you. This is Dan Aubrey. I'm at 3569 Barberry here in Wixom. Thank you for listening to me, council members. I called a month ago at the last Zoom platform meeting, and I was just curious, has there been any feedback from the developer at Stonegate Village concerning the bright street lights? Has there been any feedback to anyone there on the council?
That would be a question that could be answered during the second call to the public. There's no agenda item concerning that this time.
You said that. You're okay. Excuse me.
It's okay.
Okay, I'm going to go ahead and mute that caller. Again, for the other callers that are online, *9 alerts us that you would like to speak. Are there any other callers that would like to speak at this time? I'm seeing no other callers at this time, Mayor Beagle.
Thank you, and we'll move on. First up is the city manager's report. We have the departmental reports of May 2020. Any questions? Councilmember Sharp?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. This is regarding the community services report from Director McGee. Just had a question about the third bullet point from the bottom. It says the community center is closed from March 13th until further notice, but the staff is working from home. And I'm just wondering what gainful employment are they getting from home? I hope there is something, but I was just wondering if you could clarify what exactly that is.
Yes, I'll answer. They've actually been brought back to the community center. They're working on a variety of things. They're doing some community outreach oriented stuff, if you will, and that relates to like the food distribution events that we've had, the census outreach stuff. They're working pretty closely with multiple departments at the county as well as at the state on coordinating on those events. And things are actually starting to ramp back up a little bit on the Parks and Recreation side with people's interest in getting back into activities. So they're actually back at the building, pretty well occupied actually with a variety of things going on.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome. Deanna, I don't know if you're there, if you want to add anything to that.
Oh, no, I'm here, but yeah, staff is working. We're also helping with the voters, the election, and some of the other items with the city.
Councilmember Grunland Fox.
Thank you, Mayor. I had a question regarding on the F&B operations report. On the last page, it talks about the water loss prevention, and number 5, it's mentioned something about a city or a system-wide survey. And I was wondering if we've looked into that survey and what the cost of that survey would be.
Tim, you have that?
Yeah, I was just looking, grabbing. We do have a water loss survey that we compare each time we do utility billing, and we compare those, what we've taken in as far as the residential and commercial meter reads versus what we've paid to GLWA for that portion. And the water loss is always up and down, as you probably know. We have not checked into costs for running the full survey that they've talked about, but we will look at that and get back to you.
So Tim, what would the full survey encompass? If the survey that you just talked about, what would be the difference between that survey and this full survey that you're talking about?
So as a general rule, if you've got 5 to 10% water loss on any given quarter, if you will, that's been fairly acceptable as far as meters, because each meter has a 5% plus or minus reading anyway. So those portions are there. If there was something much greater, we might consider looking for water problems, such as you can do sound surveys where you're looking for underground water breaks in the lines and those kind of things. And during dry months like these, those are pretty easy to spot as far as where the water main breaks are. So, we have a fairly new system, and the breaks in general are not really there. So
Okay,
if
thank
that,
you.
yeah, sure.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
You're welcome. Any other questions on the departmental reports? Deputy Mayor Resnick.
Yes, I noticed that, per our request, the written notices of exceedances on the FOG, the fats, oils, and greases have been going out now. But as usual, it's our usual cast of characters that are on that list, which seems to be, repetitive year after year after year. And I know, Tim, you had talked about educational efforts. Is high turnover at those facilities causing the repeated exceedances, or what else can we do besides the education piece of it?
So it's always about education on those kind of things, and really the limit that we have is considerably, it's low. It's 100 parts per or 100 parts per million milligrams per liter, and it can be difficult to meet that. Some of the results are in the 200s and 300s, if I remember.
And one's 585. Yep.
Yeah.
Yeah.
The 5, those are the ones that we really want to concentrate on initially, but we're working with them on that. Now, Ruben did also say that there were 3 businesses that haven't really opened back up yet, so the letters haven't been sent to them, but everybody else has received a letter, and we'll be monitoring them for compliance here very soon.
So if 100 milligrams per liter is not, if it's too low of a threshold, then is there something else? Is there any benchmarks that could say what it should be?
So that is the benchmark.
Okay.
But it depending on the systems that they have in place, it might be difficult to meet. What we're do is clean those interceptors more frequently to get that down. And depending on what their cycle is, we're trying to, sample as necessary, but also get them to clean periodically so that we know their system. Yeah, and that hasn't. Yeah, we haven't quite honed that down completely yet. So, yeah. It's still a concern, definitely.
Okay, thank you.
Sure.
Councilmember Gotcho.
Thank you. Along those same lines, would you say that there's an amount where it's just like kind of negligence, or just they don't care to even make an attempt? Like 585 is kind of up there. That seems intentional.
Yep, that one is, and it's kind of strange that that company we would see that much unless they weren't cleaning it much at all. I'd have to get with Ruben, looking at the history of it, but those are the kind that we want to concentrate on, just because those are the higher potentials. As they get closer and closer to 100, the the amount of grease that is collected and stored, basically, it solidifies in our pipes, and that's what we're concerned with. And anything more than 100 will do that. But yeah, that's where the limit is.
Now, I know we've talked education, we've talked fines a little bit as well.
Yep.
Is that something that as a council we would need to vote on, or can that be handled administratively where we set a threshold, like 100 is education level, but if you get to 300, it's X amount, and if you get to 500, it's another amount?
So what we do also is inspect the sanitary sewers downstream of these facilities, and along with this, we may invoke some cleaning requirements, and what we would do at that point, and I consider it a fine if we have to bill them for cleaning the sewers downstream because they haven't met their goals of 100 milligrams per liter. So that's another alternative that we do look at on occasion, just to make sure that, because our ultimate goal is to make sure that the sewers flow freely and cleanly and preventing any backups in the system.
To answer the question directly, that could be done administratively.
Okay.
Yes.
Tim, correct?
Because I understand like the passing the costs on if Metro or whoever has to come out and clean the sanitary or sewer lines, but
Yes.
at a certain point that is doing more damage to
Correct.
us. It's costing us time just in staff hours as well. I'm not sure all of that is being included in the hey, here's your bill for us having to call somebody out to jet the line, as opposed to you're going to pay for that plus you're going to pay for our other costs as well because you can't seem to get on board with how to do this correctly.
Yes, we do have that in the ordinance as well for
Okay.
staff time collection and resampling for that purpose as well, and we'll start moving towards that.
Okay. A few other questions related to the water wastewater report. I noticed phosphorus is high again. We had some explanation on that from the city manager last week and today, actually. What is in the immediate future to get that under control besides just continuing to add chemicals to the system?
So there's I guess a three-pronged approach. One is adding the chemicals, or we add ferric chloride to remove some of the phosphorus from the influent coming through. We've installed one tertiary filter. It's a disc filter that is part of our plant upgrades. The second filter has been removed, and now the disc filter is getting ready to be put in place. So that'll be the next phase. And we also have the equalization basins down right now for repairs. So once the system is back in order, if you will, we feel that the phosphorus is going to be coming down significantly. Then the third approach is additional chemical with polymer at a different location in the plant. So we can, with these new disc filters, we can add a polymer just before it hits the disc filters and be able to remove even more phosphorus.
Is there anything on the business side, the user side, that we can be requiring they do if there's pretty consistent flow from people?
So right now we have a surcharge limit, meaning that once it hits a certain limit, which is fairly low, they're required to pay additional fees for that. And if you recall on our budget hearings, we increased it by $1 per pound for those discharges. And then a second dollar per pound is going to be put in place the first of the year. So in 2021, it'll now be $3.65 a pound to discharge phosphorus that's beyond our surcharge or beyond that limit. We're going to continue to increase that to try and move our industries to compliance in that area.
How many pounds, like additional, are we seeing people put
So-
in?
So our influent pounds, if you look at the report, is 104 pounds per day. So it's roughly 30,000 pounds a month. And then we reduce it. We've been really reducing it down on our effluent to by 30, a factor of 30. So our influent per day is reduced down to a total pounds for the month of 100 is what the treatment is right now. Last month it was 72, primarily because most of the industries were taken out of service for that time. And our limit typically coming in, original design was 160 pounds per month. So that's, I'm sorry, 160 pounds per day. And that's where, so we're within that limit right now.
Are there particular businesses that are adding more to the system though? Like what additional would they typically see?
Yes,
Of that $3 charge, like is $3
enough.
making a difference?
Well, the surcharges will go into effect July 1, the first additional dollar. So it's $1.65 right now. It'll go up to $2.65 on July 1, and then $3.65 on January 1. So that remains to be seen. But
Okay. I also noticed the dissolved oxygen was above the limit as well. Can you explain what that is, what can be done about it as well, please?
So sure. The dissolved oxygen, actually, it's good when it's high. We're looking for a limit of 6. So it's got to be higher than 6 at any
Okay,
given.
so minimum.
Yeah, it's the ability to breathe.
Okay. All right, thank you.
Anybody else? I just want to make a comment on the fats, oils, and greases. I think we need to keep an eye on that one facility because the facility with the highest score, they have no fryers in their facility at all. So it just tells me that they're just throwing stuff down the drain. They're not trying to do it the right way. So let's keep an eye on them. And if it continues to be high, then let's take care of that. We don't
Yes, sir.
need with them. All right, with that, we'll move on to the quarterly budget investment report for March 2020. Anybody have any questions on that? All right, seeing none, we'll move on to the consent agenda. The consent agenda, all items listed on the consent agenda are considered routine by city council and will be enacted by one motion. There will be no separate discussion of these items unless a council member so requests, in which event the items will be removed from the consent agenda and added to the regular agenda at the end of unfinished or new business. Do I have a motion?
So moved.
Support? Very good. Roll call vote, please.
Oh, I'm sorry. Am I not allowed to ask something? Just a
No, you can't. No, go ahead, Councilmember Sharp.
Right. Administrative note on my term expiration. I think it's 11/8/2021 on there. Unless I'm wrong, but I'm pretty sure that's what it is.
Are we on consent agenda?
Oh, is it?
Agenda.
That's not consent agenda? I'm sorry. I thought it was in there.
Oh, no, that's what's coming up next.
Oh, sorry. Okay. My bad.
You don't want to stay longer?
Pages. I got lost in the middle of it.
All right, roll call vote, please.
Councilmember Gotchall,
Yes.
Councilmember Grenlin Fox,
Yes.
Councilmember Sharp,
Aye.
Councilmember Smiley,
Aye.
Mayor Beagle,
Aye.
Deputy Mayor Resnick,
Aye.
Councilmember Behrman,
Yes.
7 yes.
Very good. We have no unfinished business. So we'll move on to new business number 1. And that's a recommendation to confirm mayoral appointments. Do I have a motion?
So
So
moved.
moved.
Support?
Support.
Thank you. we have a whole slew of people whose terms are up on 6:30. And I'll just read them off. On the cemetery board, Michael Monahan, the DDA, Melanie Clubacini, Parks and Rec Commission, Marianne Chupa, Lisa Ferrari, and Tom Menzies. Planning Commission, Phil Carter, Mark Lotta, Senior Citizen Commission, Anna Contreras, and George Carty. And Zoning Board of Appeals, Stephen Winters. And Planning Commission is Sandro Grassi. All of these terms will be 3-year terms with the expiration date of June 30, 2023. Any comments? And we'll take note of Councilmember Sharp. We'll make that correction on yours.
What was the correction?
His term expires on 11/8 of 2021, and it says 2022 on the that we have.
Oh, I see what you're saying.
Yeah. All right. Seeing no questions, I have a motion and a second to approve the recommendations to confirm the mayoral appointments. Roll call vote, please.
Councilmember Grunland Fox,
Yes.
Councilmember Sharp,
Aye.
Councilmember Smiley,
aye,
Mayor Beagle,
Yes.
Deputy Mayor Resnick,
Aye.
Councilmember Behrman,
Yes.
Councilmember Gotchall,
Yes.
7 yes.
Thank you. New business item number 2 is a recommendation to introduce an ordinance to amend the City of Wixom zoning ordinance, Chapter 18.12, General Provisions, Section 18.12.170, Special Events, and Section 18.12.180, Temporary Uses, including modifications to Chapter 18.22, Zoning Board of Appeals, and Chapter 18.24, Definitions. Do I have a motion?
so moved.
Support.
All right. Any questions on this? Do we want to get a little, Kelly, I see you're on. You want to give a little explanation on this, or?
Thank you. Sorry. Thank you, Mayor Beagle. Yes, we are always striving to make the development and review process in the city more user-friendly. And the ordinances, text ordinances we're proposing this evening, we hope will make great strides in that endeavor. The first one we're looking at is the special events and temporary uses. The Planning Commission on March 2nd held a public hearing and made a positive recommendation to you to approve the amendments. Currently in the city zoning ordinance, we do not distinguish between a special event and a temporary use. And in doing that, it can be very onerous to try to review and approve those. So what we've done is we have differentiated those two. A special event is something that would occur no more than 7 days. And then a temporary use with other qualifications can and will exist for maybe up to 12 months without changing the use in the district. Both of these items were actually contained within the Zoning Board of Appeals section. And we believe that it's more appropriate that these two actually be moved to the general provision section of the ordinance because it's the Planning Commission that really should be reviewing the items because we look at the site plan and traffic circulation and other items like that. And it's more appropriate for the Planning Commission to review that. So we would like to remove it from the Zoning Board of Appeals section and place it into the general provisions. Within the text for special events, we have added something that basically requires a traffic consultant to review the special event if it takes place within a parking lot. We're always concerned about pedestrian safety, and so this would be one extra level of review that we have. We also acknowledge that some special events can occur multiple times a year. We are proposing text that allows an annual permit for these events as long as the event that they're asking for those several times is exactly the same. In distinguishing, so moving on to temporary uses, we have allowed language, like I said, for the Planning Commission to approve it through an application and a sketch plan. It is possible for the temporary use to be extended to up to 1 year with approval from the Planning Commissions. We have additionally added a provision that allows the Planning Commission to revoke a permit should the conditions and requirements not be maintained. So in order to not only put these in the general provisions, but also to make these amendments, we had to offer and add these, add additional definitions to the definition section of the ordinance. So you will see that as far as also as part of our, part of the recommendation. A marked up copy of the ordinances actually should be in your packet, and you can look at that. And I am happy to answer any questions, specific questions you may have.
Very good. Do we have any questions? Councilmember Berman.
I mean, coming from the Zoning Board of Appeals previous, given the fact that the board seldom meets as it is now, I mean, removing these provisions is almost going to make the board obsolete at this point. It was my first reservation. My second reservation is I kind of view the Planning Commission as the body to review things moving forward, and then the Zoning Board of Appeals as the exception to the rules. And from listening to your description tonight, so let's just say an establishment wants to do an event in their parking lot that they've done every year since they've been open. Are they now going to have a traffic consultant to put up a tent in their parking lot? Because I don't feel like that's making it more user friendly for our businesses, as you said that your intent of making these changes were.
The applicant will not have to, or applicant will not have to have a traffic consultant. What we will do is we will have our traffic consultant look at it just to make sure that, you know, that the drive aisles are distanced well enough from the event, that there's not any possible pedestrian and automobile interaction that could happen. This provision, although historically it has been included in Zoning Board of Appeals sections, almost all communities are moving that now to the Planning Commission, because they do have to look at, for instance, for a temporary use, we do have to look at where it's being located, the setbacks, the neighboring and adjacent uses. And those are all things that the Planning Commission does when they review a site plan. So that is why we feel like it's more appropriate to move it to the Planning Commission. The Zoning Board of Appeals, you know, traditionally is really just to hear variances, to make interpretations, but not as far as planning, not planning events or approving those sort of items.
You good, Councilmember Berman?
Not necessarily. I mean, I hear what she's saying. I just not really sure I understand the intent still, but fair enough. Thank you.
Very good. Councilmember Gatchel?
Thank you. In looking at this, it didn't look like we got the full ordinance, because we kind of jump around in section 1822.060. It all gets crossed out. That ends on a subsection F, and then the next page we have, or at least that I have, picks up in the middle of something else that I guess would be a B. So I'm just wondering what's missing in between there. Then I also notice there's a section E that has about 23 question marks at the end of it. So I was just wondering if we got that figured out for the final version.
Yes, certainly. The section 1822.060 for Zoning Board of Appeals, where it's all crossed out and ends in F, basically we're just showing you that that is being completely removed from the section.
I get that. I'm just wondering because the next page, it picks up with what I assume would be a subsection B, even though it's not labeled, it doesn't all flow together. So I'm just wondering what is in between those, or if it's not changing from what we currently have. It seems that we're missing a few pages.
Yeah, and I apologize if that is the case. I would have to look at.
I can kind of clarify that. I think if you look back at the beginning of the general provisions, 18.12180 temporary uses ends at B, and then that gets continued on that page. So that inclusion of that page in between is probably out of order.
Okay.
Does that make sense, Kelly?
Yes.
Because if you look at B, it says for removing the use at the termination of the special temporary use permit, which is continued on 2 pages later then.
Right, it's the next page. They're out of order. Yeah,
Right.
thank you.
Okay. That subsection E, though, it says no temporary use shall install any permanent structures and shall be limited to demountable structures with a bunch of question marks. Have we decided?
Yeah. There should be no question marks there.
Okay.
I think that was carryover from editing, unfortunately. Sorry about that.
Okay, thank you.
Very good. Councilmember Grenlund Fox?
Thank you. Ms. McIntyre, with your example of the traffic consultant, and you had mentioned that the city would be paying for the traffic consultant, how often does that happen?
Well, we do utilize a traffic consultant through HRC. A majority of our site plans, we do actually now have our traffic consultant look at it just to see if there may be any issues. It's kind of a cursory review. But as far as for temporary uses or special event, I don't know that it hasn't happened in the past. I don't think it will be a lengthy review, but it is something just to be safe that we would like to, have them do. I don't believe we have done in the past, no.
Okay, so it's something that potentially could happen often. I'm just trying to figure that if it's an additional cost for the city, what that perhaps might be.
The cost, if you will, the cost is typically handled through the escrow on the property. So they provide escrow and it's charged towards that escrow.
Right. Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
You're welcome. Anybody else? Councilmember Smiley?
I know there's no time for fun and nonsense. We got a lot to do, but those masks are really cool behind you there. Wish we had time to talk about it. That's all.
Thank you. Thank you.
Anybody else? All right, I got a motion and a second to approve the recommendation to introduce an ordinance to amend the City of Wixom zoning ordinance, Chapter 18.12, General Provisions, Section 18.12.170, Special Events, and Section 18.12.8180, Temporary Uses, include modifications to Chapter 18.22, Zoning Board of Appeals, and Chapter 18.24, Definitions. Roll call vote, please.
Councilmember Sharp,
Aye.
Councilmember Smiley,
Aye.
Mayor Beagle,
Aye.
Deputy Mayor Resnick,
Aye.
Councilmember Behrman,
Yes.
Councilmember Gotchall,
Yes.
Councilmember Grenlund Fox,
Yes.
7 yes.
Thank you. New business item number 3 is a recommendation to introduce an ordinance to amend the City of Wixom Code of Ordinances, Chapter 16.12, Subdivision Approval, Section 16.12.080, Condominium Subdivision Approval. Do I have a motion?
So moved.
Second?
Support.
Thank you. Ms. McIntyre again?
Yes,
Wanna
thank
give a
you.
little explanation?
This next amendment actually dates back to when, this is what I'm told, Kevin Hinckley was the mayor. And this is something that the council has wanted to happen for quite some time. Currently, our site condominium review process requires that the preliminary plan comes to both the Planning Commission and then to the City Council. And then it goes back for a final site plan review, Planning Commission and City Council. What we are proposing is that the second review or the review from the City Council reviewing the final site plan be removed. We think that the city council oversees the large matters containing to the site layout, the appearance and the road network and those items, but doesn't necessarily get into the details, which the planning commission does. And those little details are generally worked out during the planning commission review of final site plan. By the time it gets to the city council for that second review, it seems to be almost like a rubber stamp. So we believe that eliminating that second review will prevent unnecessary delays and allow the development to go forward into the construction review process. So this one simply removes one layer of review by the city. I'm happy to answer any questions.
Councilmember Grenlund Fox?
So, Ms. McIntyre, could you just explain to me, so it would be the second review that is being proposed to be eliminated? So it would go to the planning commission, their recommendation then would come to council, and then council would not see the project again. Is that what you're saying?
Correct. Correct.
Okay, thank you.
Councilmember Smiley?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. The ordinance states that the final plan shall incorporate all the information items prescribed for the preliminary plan, be consistent, and blah, blah, blah. Yeah, so as long as the language is strong enough, I can agree that we don't need to see it a second time around. I don't recall us ever, it could have been before my time that, that we didn't really want to see it or felt that we needed to see it. And it's great if we're, helping move things along by not gumming up the works. You just want to make sure that, it's not helpful for us to see it. And I read through the minutes from the meeting, and it sounded like, we rarely ever have anything to say. And it sounds like, if we do tell you something or something comes up in the preliminary, review that, it has to be done. So I'm not worried about the oversight necessarily, but as long as that language is clear that, anything that shakes out from us in the preliminary, it's got to have, it must be done. One other quick question, then I'll let you, talk to these things. In the planning commission minutes, it also said the amendments were referred to as emergency amendments. What makes this an emergency? Or did I misinterpret something?
No, you didn't. Actually, I believe if Carmen is available, he can answer those. Really, we just wanted to get these through. We thought that it was important we see these now. We are working on many amendments to the zoning ordinance, and we didn't want to wait until we had all those put together in a large package and bring it to you. We felt like these are amendments that can happen now and can be a benefit to developers or to applicants. So that's why we called them emergency, but just emergent as in coming quickly and could certainly help. So perhaps emergency amendments isn't the appropriate nomenclature for them.
Careful how you throw that word around these days.
Correct. Yes.
Councilmember Gurman.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I guess my first issue is kind of how this was presented, and that emergency language kind of confused me as well, because on one end I'm seeing it's an emergency, and the other end I'm seeing this was asked for back 3 mayors ago. So I guess that kind of, I didn't feel like it was a fair representation. And I saw several times in the minute it was alleged that, council has requested that. Okay, 3 councils ago requested this, that not this current council. So I don't necessarily think the description, possibly even the planning commission, was accurate. But that being said, I like the idea of cutting a level out if it's not needed, but I wouldn't be comfortable voting to approve this change as proposed.
Okay.
For example, the subdivision that we development we have later in the meeting tonight. I don't see any issues with that. Perhaps council won't see any issues with that. Perhaps that'll be approved and there'll be no issues that'll go back to planning commission and won't need to come before us. But let's say we do have a development that we have a lot of questions with or a lot of concerns with. I would like to see some language in here that, you know, but for the council requesting for it to come back, it won't need to come forward or something along those lines. But I don't feel comfortable just saying we're only going to see something once and it goes back to planning and you know, we'll never see it again. So I maybe, you know, if we have a development we're not comfortable with, but we're, you know, or not 100% comfortable with, we see some issues, we can approve it contingent upon it coming back a second time or something along those lines. But just, we have to approve it and never see it again. I'm not comfortable with that language.
Okay.
Mr. Mayor,
Yes,
my video's locked.
okay,
It's coming.
go ahead, Carmen.
Okay, there we go. Thank you. And now I'm frozen. Yeah, we one of the other reasons why it was requested that we take this step out is we're asking for a lot of the detailed information at preliminary, similar to what we do if it were a plat, even though most developers no longer do subdivisions, they typically do site condominiums. But what we'd like to do is bring to you a plan that is pretty substantially complete. The only items that typically are remaining are things like landscaping, you know, if there any material changes were requested, things like that. But you should be getting a pretty complete plan at preliminary so that you do feel comfortable. And if there are any items that you're not comfortable with still at preliminary, we would bring it back to you. You could table it and bring it back. It was just intended to make it an easier process, not only for the folks who are proposing these developments, but also for council, because so many of them have come back and we've heard, well, we've already seen this, you're just showing us the same information again with some minor details added to it. So that's the only reason that we've made this proposed change. And if I can also add on the ordinance amendments, we've got a lot of ordinance amendments that are coming forward, and we do need to go back through them with the city attorney just to make sure that, because things are always changing, there's always court cases and new legislation and so forth, and we've been working on these for a while. So we do have to sit down with the attorney and go back through all of these before we bring them to the planning commission. So we just wanted to make sure that we got these particular items are ones that will certainly help. And we're going through the redevelopment ready communities process. And one of the things that they look for us to do is to make our ordinances more developer friendly, not eliminating or reducing the quality of the development, but just making the process a little bit smoother and easier for folks to deal with. So that's why we are coming forward with these amendments right now. Maybe they were misnamed emergency, they should have been called something else, but that's the reason why we're doing it.
Carmen and Kelly, I have a quick question, and I'll get to Deputy Mayor Resnick. Let's say a developer comes in and the planning commission denies the approval, then it comes to us and we deny. And then will it go back to planning? And if they deny, does this developer have a option to come to city council or is it done at that point?
It's done.
Okay, very
Yes.
good. Thank you. Deputy Mayor Resnick.
Yes, thank you so much. Maybe these questions are for Carmen. Carmen, one of the questions is, how much delay is typically caused by the current situation with having to go back through the city council? Is it a couple weeks? Is it a month? What do you typically see based on the cadence of the planning commission meetings and the city council meetings?
I would say about a month and a half for each step in the process.
So
yeah, just because there's a lot of
amount
information and reports and things like that. Yeah.
A considerable amount of delay because of the second time around.
Yes. If in my opinion, and obviously from at least some of the previous council members that were involved, felt that if that information were critical and that you hadn't worked out all the bugs before it came back, that that step would still be necessary. In our opinion, I mean, we have communities who actually, with site condominiums, they don't even go to city council. They just go right to the site plan review process through the planning commission. But that's more of a policy issue. But to bring it back a second time it just doesn't seem to be an effective use of the city council's time either. So.
Okay, my second question related to that is you made a comment that some communities have applicants go through the site plan review process, and this makes the process also easier. So currently they do not participate in a planning commission, correct?
Those communities that do have site condominiums just go to planning commission. They treat it just as they would any other site plan, as opposed to having it go to council for review.
But you said the applicants go and review process.
Yeah, the applicants go to the planning commission. They don't come to city council.
Okay. Okay, so they are currently going through the site plan review process with planning commission then.
Okay, for this project right here, that like the Capri project tonight, they already went through planning commission, who's recommending to city council. So you're going to see that, and then if you're good with the preliminary plan, then it goes back to planning commission for their final site plan review, and then it comes back to you for final site plan review.
Yeah, I was just curious as to what you meant by the comment. Some applicants, they have applicants go through the site plan review process on page 1 from that. I was just curious as to what you really meant by that.
Oh, okay, that was more of a generic statement that their ordinance doesn't require it to go to city council. It just goes to planning commission. Sorry about that. Yeah.
Well, thanks for clarification.
Anybody else? Councilmember Sharp.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Hello, Carmine.
Hi, Peter. How are you?
Good, thanks. Just a comment regarding the Planning Commission. I spent quite a bit of time looking at these, and they're thoroughly vetted. You know, we have 3 opportunities for the public to comment if we go to this new proposal. We do duly swear the Planning Commission to do the job that we're asking them to do. And do we need to do it also, I guess? And I think the preliminary site plan is council's guidance that it's okay. And then we entrust the Planning Commission to do their job and get something that the community and the city will like, the constituents in the city will like. It's a fully minuted, documented, agenda posted meeting. It's just like council, only it's they're appointed by council rather than elected. So I support this.
Okay. Anybody else?
Mr. Mayor, if I could just to respond to those last comments there by Peter. The Planning Commission for Wixom is, I'm sure you all know, and for the public's edification, Wixom has always had a really good planning commission. We've had a chair that's been there. We've been consultants here for 19 years, and Bill Day was the chairman when we started. So he's been there a long time, and just from top to bottom, it's always been a really good planning commission. And so I think that also is something to consider too when you look at an ordinance like this, that not every community has such a good planning commission.
Councilmember Berman.
Thank you. So I would agree with you that our planning commission does a really good job, and looking for the plans that are coming later for our next agenda item is very well presented. And that is one particular issue that I like. If we approve that, I'm perfectly confident saying that we don't need to see that one again, and that can be in the hands of planning commission. But I mean, given this is the first one of these that I've seen, and given the fact that the planning commission could change over time, what would prevent us from, adding something to the ordinance that would say, when we approve it, if we had questions, we could just at the time elect that we would want this one to come back for a second bite at the apple. I mean, you get what I'm saying? I'm not saying that I'm saying that 99% of the stuff that comes before us should be the only time it comes before us. But if we have that development that we want to make sure we get it right, the downtown area, etc., why could we not approve it contingent upon having a final approval of council?
Mr. Mayor, if I could respond,
Certainly.
I guess I'm of the feeling that when you get these preliminary plans, you're looking at the lot layouts, you're looking at, where the utilities are going to go, you're looking at where the buildings are going to be. We added in the building footprint location at the request of the Planning Commission. You're looking at a lot of items, and it's our job, us and the other department heads and consultants, to make sure that you're getting enough information at preliminary that you're totally comfortable with the project at hand. If you're not, you can always table it and ask for that information to come back. But for the most part, I think we're going to provide you with what you need and what you're looking for. So the only items that are remaining, which has happened in the past, are things that you're going to say, we really don't need to see. We really don't need to see the landscaping plan, or, we don't need to see the lighting plan, things like that. So, that would be my response. It's just, once again, a way to not only make sure that you're getting all the information up front at preliminary that you need to make a good decision, but you're also not spending time on projects that take up your time that you could be using on other things. That's the intent behind it.
Very good.
Thank you.
Councilmember Grenlund Fox.
Thank you. I understand and agree actually with Councilmember Berman's comments. Is there a way that we can amend the motion to include those comments and still move it forward tonight?
Mr. Mayor?
Yes.
Kelly or I can certainly check with the city attorney to see if that's, I don't see any reason why we couldn't write that in there. We just want to make sure with the city attorney that that's something that we legally could do, because if you have something you're really concerned about, and maybe there are certain items that in most cases you wouldn't want to see, but in a particular project, maybe there's a lot of natural features and you do want to see the landscape plan, that you could reserve the right to do that. So we can write it in. We just want to make sure that the attorney is good with that.
Okay. I don't want to speak for them, but I would think, because council really has the ultimate authority to approve or deny something that comes through, but I understand what you're saying. Thank you. Thank you, Mayor.
You're welcome. City Managers Brown or Madam Clerk Buck, do we just go ahead with this, or do we table this then until we get the answer?
No, you're perfectly fine with proceeding with the introduction with the comments that you've made at this meeting, and then we can vet it with the attorney. And if there's an issue with it, we report back to you. If there isn't, we make the changes at the enactment time.
Okay.
We're
Very
fine.
good. Any other questions? Councilmember Gotcho.
Thank you. So regarding the ability to call projects back, I just worry that being in there, legally, it might be found to be a little bit arbitrary depending on what projects we call back or do get called back for further scrutiny. And I'm just thinking of developers we've had issues with and feeling picked on at times for their projects. And so I worry that if we aren't always calling back every project, then we decide to call someone's project back for review at the council level. They might feel that we're going out of our way to scrutinize them or what they're up to. Was Stonegate a site condo or a platted sub, Carmen?
Mr. Mayor, the Stonegate project was done as a site condominium, but because it was through a consent agreement, they were only required to go through the Planning Commission for site plan review, the way the
Okay.
consent judgment is written.
And then the other project that was proposed off of Maple Road recently, was that proposed as a site condo?
Yes, almost all projects are site
Okay.
condominiums because it takes a state like a year to review a project, so it's easier to do a
The
site
site.
condominium. Yeah.
So I guess just knowing, like, in our most recent history, we've had a few issues with developers. I don't feel entirely comfortable foregoing our review as a council. And I had kind of picked up on the language in here as well, dating back to Mr. Hinckley being mayor and other councils. We have a different makeup now. I think we're a little bit more hands-on, I would say, than maybe some in the past as a group. I don't feel comfortable ceding our final review to a non-elected group. I don't, I guess, understand why it takes a month and a half for something to come back to us once Planning Commission approves it, unless they're approving it with a bunch of other pending issues as we do from time to time. But I would rather not make these changes at this point. I don't think it does us any favors. I understand it being developer friendly in terms of timeline, but I think there poses a risk of it not being resident friendly, and that's what really counts to me. So I'll be voting no on this. Thank you.
Anybody else? All right, seeing none, I have a motion and a second to approve the recommendation to introduce an ordinance to amend the City of Wixom Code of Ordinances, Chapter 16.12, subdivision approval, and Section 16-12-080, condominium subdivision approval. Roll call vote, please.
Councilmember Smiley,
Aye.
Mayor Beagle,
Yes.
Deputy Mayor Resnick,
Aye.
Councilmember Behrman,
Yes.
Councilmember Gotchall,
No.
Councilmember Grenlin Fox,
Yes.
Councilmember Sharp,
Aye.
6 yes, 1 no.
Thank you. Moving on to new business number 4 is a recommendation to approve a development of 10 single-family residential lots to be called Capri Court condominiums. Ms. McIntyre.
Yes. Thank you, Mayor Beagle.
You're welcome.
The application before you is a proposal to develop, it's a 4.3 acre parcel, currently zoned R3. The applicant would like to develop it with 10 single-family condominium units. The proposal is on the east side of Wixom Road between Maple and Potter Roads.
Excuse me for a second, Kelly. Mr.
Yes.
Milburn, can you put the engineer and the developer on the screen, please? Can you?
Absolutely.
fill them in? Thanks. Go ahead, Kelly.
Mr. Mayor, maybe one point of order too. Should we have a motion and a second to get it on the table here?
Give what an
The for
Approval.
for the approval of it?
Oh, I'm sorry, I thought he did, yes. Do I have a motion?
So moved.
Support? Thank you, sorry about that. Thanks, Deputy Mayor, that's why you're there.
Very good,
Go
thank you.
ahead, Kelly.
That's okay, thank you. The approval process, like we've talked about this evening, is that the Planning Commission sees this for both for preliminary and final site plan review, and currently on our ordinance, the council will see it for the final site plan review, preliminary and final site plan review. This particular site is laid out with 80-foot wide lots, which meet the ordinance standards. And it also contains envelopes that meet all the setback standards. It is laid out in such a way that there's a 27-foot private road on a 48-foot right-of-way easement that terminates in a cul-de-sac. According to the city code, 60-foot right-of-ways are required for residential streets. And so the applicant is proposing 48 feet. It is seen and approved in other portions of the city. Primarily, we've seen that reduction in right-of-way in the VCA. So if you are inclined to make a recommendation or make an approval of the preliminary site plan, you would need to include a waiver to allow the council to reduce it by 12 feet. So from 60 feet to 48 feet. There is a bioretention pond that's proposed along Wixom Road frontage, as well as along the rear of a majority of the units. The bioretention pond measures 20 feet in width, and it is planted with appropriate vegetation. This is a new application that we're seeing here in the city, and it's based upon the soils being quite sandy. I will defer to the applicant and their engineer because they can explain it a little bit better than we can, but this will be something new for us. There's along the north side of the property, the applicant is proposing 5-foot sidewalks throughout the development and an 8-foot sidewalk along Wixom Road. The ordinance meets, or the application meets all the ordinance requirements for landscaping, for trees, for buffering. And with that, I believe that that's everything. They do and will be bringing to the Planning Commission the condo docs and the master deed, as well as floor plans and facade elevations during the final site plan review. So those will be submitted and approved then. The Planning Commission did make a recommendation with conditions listed in your agenda or your note, that all references to the lots be changed to units, that the restrictions to the building or the use of the property within the easement and bioretention area be noted and addressed in the master deed for the final condominium plan review, that the council accepts the reduced right-of-way width from 60 feet to 48 feet. Revision dates should be included on all subsequent plans, and that the review and approval from the other departments, consultants, and agencies be gained. I'm happy to answer questions.
Member Grenland Fox?
Ms. McIntyre, just a few questions. So talking about the narrow streets, has the fire department signed off on that? Are they okay with the streets as far as the emergency vehicles? And
yes, in fact, the street width, 27 feet, is consistent. That actually hasn't really been reduced. It's the right of way that's reduced. And so because they intend for this to be a private road, 60 feet would be for, if it was a public, that's what the standards are for a public road in residential areas. There may be utilities that run along that, but the actual road width is standard and is okay with the fire department.
okay, great. And then I didn't see, what is the intended size range of the units? I thought I saw something about 2,000 square feet, but is that what all the units are going to be?
No, I don't. I might defer to the applicant on that. What we were able to review was basically the building footprint. So we were able to establish the building footprint, what that is, and then the applicant needs to remain within that building footprint. It's a generous footprint because the lots are pretty large, and so they could have a ground floor area of up to 2,000 square feet, which would be quite large. I'm not sure exactly what the plan or the total square footage or the proposal of the building or residential type or design is, and I'm not sure I haven't seen anyone, I'm not sure if they're on the call, can address that, but that will certainly be addressed in final site plan.
I mean, we can.
I'd like to know that, as well as maybe you can also answer for me how many units will be 2-story Will they all be two-story? Will there be any ranches mixed in there?
Go ahead, Fadi, will you introduce yourself and then answer these questions, please?
Yeah, this is Fadi Khalil, and I have Donnie with me. Donnie, he can speak to the houses, how they're gonna be built, what kind of houses, the sizes, and all that stuff.
Okay.
So the house sizes will probably range between 2,000 to 2,500 square feet-ish, depending on what type of selections or homes that the buyer would like to put in a certain lot. So we're going to open the opportunity for buyer input on maybe style or square footage, offering maybe a couple different size colonials or a couple different size ranches that would fit on the property meeting the setbacks.
Okay, so your intent is to have both two-story and ranch units?
That, yes, we're going to have a lot of buyer input. We're going to, you know, we can show different styles that we would offer that would fit on the lots, depending on what the buyer would like to build.
Okay, how many style options do you have?
I got a couple, like 2 style colonials, style homes. I have a cape and I have a ranch. I haven't really determined exactly what the number of each is going to go in, but it would be a nice mix where I wouldn't have one ranch and the rest all colonials, or all colonials and one ranch. It would be somewhat of a mixture.
Okay, great. Thank you very much. Thank you, Mayor.
You're welcome. Any other questions?
Mayor
Deputy Mayor
Beagles?
Resnick.
Oh,
Okay, thank you, Mr. Mayor. I know that it was referenced that there will be 5-foot sidewalks in the development with an 8-foot on Wixom Road, but it's not on the cover sheet or the site plan or even in the landscape plan for reference, but it is in fact there. And why is it not shown on the site plan itself? Maybe it's just the quality of our scans too.
But I thought it was on a big blueprint that had it on there.
It is shown on the site plan.
It is shown?
Yeah, there is a 5-foot sidewalk and the 8-foot on Wixom. The hatch, it's like you can see, it's a concrete hatch.
I see the area where the 5-foot section where the trees will go in. Oh, but that other line then is the actual sidewalk, the 5-foot sidewalk?
Correct, and it's called on sheet CS, I don't know if you have the sheet. It's on sheet C-01.
Yeah, I'm looking at that, but maybe it's the quality of our scan because we cannot read any of the text on there. So, okay, but it is on there. Thank you.
Yeah. Go ahead, Carmine.
Mr. Mayor, I wanted just a couple of points to this. First of all, the right-of-way reduction was actually a request from the Planning Commission. They wanted to make sure that the lots had as much available open space as possible. And with a smaller development like this, they felt that the 60-foot width was excessive. So that request actually came from the Planning Commission, and the developers responded to that. There will also be here a development agreement that will come after the preliminary review. The city attorney will put that together. And there are 2 items that will be covered in there specifically. One is they have to loop the water main in order to create a loop system, which is required on pretty much all the developments that we review. And the ordinance also requires that there be a park for any development that's 1,000 square feet per lot. In our opinion, for small sites like this, it really doesn't make sense to put in a small pocket park like that. They usually don't get maintained and don't provide the type of recreation opportunities that residents look for. So what we're going to be looking for and would be found in the development agreement is for the developer to make a contribution to the city's park fund, so that money can be used to help support and upgrade other nearby city recreation facilities. is in lieu of that.
Councilmember Sharp.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. And Mr. Amatini or Ms. McIntyre, I would go back to thinking about zoning R3 and R4 and all the fun we had at Charms or Maple Road and Wixom Road back there behind the school property. R3, as I recall, is like 12,500 square feet. Do we meet that? It doesn't look like it, or it's hard to imagine just driving by the site.
Yeah.
But we're not asking for zoning, so I assume we're within our zoning rules here.
All the lots do meet requirements.
So
As
they're
far as-
12,000 square feet, or
Yes.
my number's wrong?
Yeah, the
Maybe
January 28th letter refers to it as 12,500 is the requirement, and it goes from 12,507 to 15,558.
right.
Okay, thank you.
Councilmember Berman.
My comments are that I'm in support of the plan as proposed. I see this as a very nice development, and I'm really happy that we found a developer that can develop within the current zoning, unlike what we've seen in the past.
I got a question for Ms. McIntyre or Mr. Amatini. You referred to the driveway as a private drive earlier, so that means the city's not going to be responsible for plowing or anything, correct?
That is the intention, correct. And we will make sure that that is addressed. Maintenance, as far as maintenance and stuff, is addressed in the master deed and condo docs. So.
Okay, very good. Thank you. Any other questions? Councilmember Gacho.
I think just to that point, I think we can enter into a maintenance agreement like we have with the downtown area as well, if they want.
Yeah, I just wanted to make sure that was clear, that it wasn't expected of us unless this is a private drive, unless we get some type of compensation for it. That's all.
Okay.
Anybody else? All right, I do know we have a motion and a support to approve this recommendation to approve the development of 10 single-family residential lots to be called Capri Court condominiums. Madam Clerk, roll call vote, please.
Mayor Beagle,
Yes.
Deputy Mayor Resnick,
Aye.
Councilmember Behrman,
Yes.
Councilmember Gacho,
Yes.
Councilmember Grunland Fox,
Yes.
Councilmember Sharp,
Aye.
Councilmember Smiley,
Aye.
7 yes.
Very good, thank you.
Thank you.
Next up, new business number 5 is a request for authorization to waive the bid process as a sole source procurement and renewal a multiple-year firefighters accidental death and dismemberment insurance policy from Provident Insurance Programs of Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania through First Responders Insurance Agency, LLC of Grayling, Michigan, for 3 annual installments of $6,955. Do I have a motion?
So moved.
Approved.
Support?
Support.
Very good. Discussion? All right, seeing none, I've got a motion and a second to approve the request for authorization to waive the bid process as a sole source procurement and renew a multiple-year firefighters accidental death and dismemberment insurance policy from Provident Insurance Programs of Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania, through First Responders Insurance Agency, LLC of Grayling, Michigan, for 3 annual installments of $6,955. Roll call vote, please.
Deputy Mayor Resnick,
Aye.
Councilmember Behrman,
Yes.
Councilmember Gacho,
Yes.
Councilmember Grunland Fox,
Yes.
Councilmember Sharp,
Aye.
Councilmember Smiley,
Aye.
Mayor Beagle,
Aye.
7 yes.
Thank you. New business number 6 is a recommendation to award the bid for tree maintenance, removal, and trimming to Maxon's Tree Services of White Lake, Michigan for 3 years and an annual amount of $20,000 with an option to renewal for 2 additional years at an increase of 1% annually. Do I have a motion?
So moved.
Support?
Support.
Good. Discussion? Seeing none, I've got a motion and a second to approve the recommendation to award the bid for tree maintenance, removal, and trimming to Maxim's Tree Companies, Tree Services of White Lake, Michigan for 3 years and an annual amount of $20,000 with the option to renewal for 2 additional years at an increase of 1% annually. Roll call vote, please.
Councilmember Behrman,
Yes.
Councilmember Getchell,
Yes.
Councilmember Grunland Fox,
Yes.
Councilmember Sharp,
Aye.
Councilmember Smiley.
Aye.
Mayor Beagle,
Yes.
Deputy Mayor Resnick,
Aye.
7 yes.
Very good. Moving right along to new business number 7. It's a recommendation to award the bid for the installation of a heating, ventilation, and air conditioning rooftop unit to the lowest qualified bidder, Danny's Heating and Cooling Refrigeration of Troy, Michigan, for a total price not to exceed $2,995.
Move to
A
approve.
motion? Support?
Support?
So,
Discussion?
Can you reread the motion, please? I think you got the numbers.
20,000.
I said 20,995.
Thank you.
All right. So I have a motion and a second to approve the recommendation to award the bid for the installation of heating, ventilation, and air conditioning rooftop unit to the lowest qualified bidder, Danny's Heating and Cooling and Refrigeration of Troy, Michigan, for the total price not to exceed $20,995. Roll call vote, please.
Councilmember Getchell,
yes.
Councilmember Grunland Fox,
Yes.
Councilmember Sharp,
Aye.
Councilmember Smiley,
Aye.
Mayor Beagle,
Yes.
Deputy Mayor Resnick,
Aye.
Councilmember Behrman,
Yes.
7 yes.
New business number 8 is a recommendation to authorize the purchase of a 2021 Ford F-550 chassis through the state of Michigan bid pricing program from Gorno Ford Incorporated of Woodhaven, Michigan for $39,244. Do I have a motion?
So
So
moved.
moved.
Support?
Support.
Sure.
Any questions? Councilmember Grella Fox?
Just one question. I see that the adopted budget was $100,000, but the cost of the truck is 39 and some change. Is that, are we getting another truck or are there other additional pieces that we're putting on it?
That's a good question. Yes, this is just the truck chassis, and we opted to do that now because our experience is if we order the truck chassis now within 2 weeks of July 1, we have a 6-month or a better chance of getting the truck 6 months earlier than anticipated. So if we wait till the next council meeting, if you will, it'll be another 6 months of waiting. So we may not get it until March or April. So we're purchasing the truck chassis now, and then we'll go back to council for the additional costs that will be the hook lift portion of the truck, which is covered by another vendor.
Okay. Tim, do you know, will we still be under the adopted budget, or do you know what that other cost will be?
I anticipate that it'll be under the adopted budget. We're looking at our options as far as how to bid it out. We need to get the bids in place first. So,
Okay.
Yeah.
Thank you.
You
Thank
bet.
you, Mayor.
Anybody else? Seeing none, I got a motion and a second to approve the recommendation to authorize the purchase of a 2021 Ford F-550 chassis through the state of Michigan bid pricing program from Gorno Ford Incorporated of Woodhaven, Michigan, in the amount of $39,244. Roll call vote, please.
Councilmember Grunland Fox,
Yes.
Councilmember Sharp,
Aye.
Councilmember Smiley,
Aye.
Mayor Beagle,
Yes.
Deputy Mayor Resnick,
Aye.
Councilmember Behrman,
Yes.
Councilmember Gotchall,
Yes.
7 yes.
Thank you.
New business number 9 is a recommendation to waive the bid process and award the Wixom Road Sidewalk Construction Project, the Great Lake Construction of Waterford, Michigan, in the amount not to exceed $52,717.09. Do I have a motion?
So moved.
Support? Councilmember Berman?
Are we waiving the bid process? I see 3 bids.
Yes, we are waiving the bid process. As you remember, our design for the sidewalks and pathways was just awarded by HRC or to HRC back in May, and they haven't completed the total amount of the design that's necessary. We did finish the total, and we requested the groups that typically bid, and we've worked with these 3 vendors in the past, and we felt that they can do an adequate job for us. So rather than put a full bid process or a full bid package out on the street for this particular area, we decided to just ask these 3 vendors to give us quotes, and they did that in a closed bid setting. But those were the only 3 that we had. The rest of the sidewalks and pathways that'll be farther north along Wixom Road will be under the rest of the bid package, if you will, and we'll put that out. It should be out on the streets by within the next couple weeks, and we hope to have it back to council probably August. And we're hoping to, for this portion of the sidewalks and pathways, we hope to have the sidewalks completed by the end of July. So we wanted to get this out first to get that any. Mr. City Manager, do you have any other comments?
Yeah, so instead of a formal bid process, we sectioned this piece of work out of the formal bid process that's going to be handled and will be completed later on in the summer because we were concerned with getting this pathway done in a timely fashion. It was discussed during a budget work session that it would be wise to do that. And we're following through on that to get this piece sectioned out and solicit quotes as opposed to going through the formal bid process. The larger project has some very complicated things in it. I need to go over wet areas and some other challenges that require additional engineering time and will require time that would make this section get slowed down to the point where we didn't feel it was acceptable, I think, to the council or to the administration. So that's why we sectioned it out for a quote.
Thank you.
Deputy Mayor Resnick.
Yeah, I just want to reiterate some of the comments I made at the budget session is that number one, if we're going to be getting the construction completed by end of July, I think we need to work with either the Trailway Council or Parks and Rec to make sure that there is signage that point to the safe crossing of Wixom Road, because on a daily basis, people are running across, myself included sometimes, just go across to the Michigan Airline Trail. And the second point is I do hope that we went back and looked at that 5-foot width and we're able to increase that to the maximum amount possible, because again, 5 foot is not acceptable for a safety path that is of the use that this gets with both pedestrian, stroller, and bicycles. So reiterate those 2 comments.
Yeah, on the signage, I had spoken to, or we were working with the airline trail manager to get the exact makeup of the sign that they were going to have placed up so that we can mock up a temporary version of it and get it up sooner. That should be something that gets done in the next week, I would hope. I was waiting on some information from that source so we could get the signage as close to what the reality is going to be in the long run, and that's what we were working on.
Anything on the width?
The width, we are working with 6-foot width on that pathway per your request.
Okay, very good. Thank you.
Councilmember Sharp.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. So 6 feet, I just went out and measured mine. I know Deputy Mayor Resnick's very passionate about sidewalk width. And one of the great things about neighborhoods is sidewalks. Ours are 5 feet in Wexford Mews. And we just asked the developer to put an 8-foot sidewalk in right in front of a condo on Wixom Road. why aren't we asking and paying for 8 feet here? Is it an easement problem? I know we had some trouble. It feels like 6 isn't really enough when you got the traffic that's going to get, in my view, just being down there many times already from the airline trail. 6 feet doesn't feel like enough.
It's physical restrictions of the space.
Okay.
Yes.
We had to get an easement or something, don't we, from one of the property owners?
Right, but notwithstanding the easement sizes, we didn't have the space to put anything larger in than 6 feet in certain sections of the sidewalk, so it limits us. It's just a physical reality of the space.
Okay, thank you for the reminder.
Yep.
Anybody else? Councilmember Berman.
Do you have the number of what we were asked to approve in the no bid setting in November?
This is what, $600 more. And the
Yeah, around, I thought it was around 550 to be a little bit more precise, but I could be wrong.
So this quote is $600 more, but the sidewalk is a foot wider than what you were proposing in November?
I believe we were proposing a 5 foot, yes.
So we are getting more concrete. I guess the first thing would go there. I'm still not quite understanding why we haven't addressed whether or not we're going to do a crosswalk there. And even if we were, why wouldn't we doing the approach at the same time? I also agree with the comments regarding 8 feet. I mean, if we could go from the trail south with 8 foot width, but only do a 6 foot width in front of that house, that's the constraint. Why can't we do 8 foot where it would be possible?
This portion is, I guess, a stopgap measure that we're trying to put in for now. And our phase 2 of the airline trail, which would cross Wixom Road and go down to, actually it'll extend way down to Old Plank at some point, but it'll cross and go down to Pontiac Trail. But that is part of another bid process that we're working on. There's significant amount of traffic studies that'll be incorporated as we cross Wixom Road. So yeah, we are working on that. And yeah, we will get signage as far as Mr. Brown had said earlier. So there is that.
Well, I know we talked about signage back in November when we first turned this down. So I guess I mean, we're 6 months in, we still don't have a sign saying don't cross the street there. I feel like that's something we could have quickly accomplished on our own accord. And then in May, correct me if I'm wrong, we approved $6,000 worth of engineering for this project that we're now going forward without that.
No, this portion is engineered. It just didn't go through the complete bid process of the remaining portions that Mr. Brown had spoken of. So this is just a small portion.
Okay.
Yeah, on the signage, you're absolutely right. It should have been taken care of by now. There was some delays that were associated with, because we thought there were going to be some signs that would be, the permanent signs would be up by this point in time. And I was still hearing recently that it was only a week or two out. And I said, I don't care if it's a week or two out, we need to get the signage up, because I knew this kind of conversation was going to happen because of that. So it was delayed because we thought the permanent signage was going to be in sooner. It's not been produced yet. So we're moving forward with the temporary signage now after we just cut bait on that process, and we're going to put up a sign. So it got delayed because of that. Optimism is what I would say caused the delay. So we're going to move forward with the signage. The other question you had about like the hawk for the crossing, that was going to be incorporated in the second phase of the trail all along, because there was some questions about where the trail is going to ultimately end up in phase 2. And we didn't want to put a bridge to nowhere, if you will, if it didn't make sense to put it there. So it was delayed because of those kind of concerns. Unfortunately, it's created the situation that it has. It's a good problem to have with how popular the resource is, but it is a problem with people running into that spot and not knowing what to do. So we're going to get that temporary signage up. We're going to get this sidewalk put in place. We were also concerned about the signage from the standpoint of, again, directing people to a spot where there wasn't an existing path. And that was another concern. But again, at this point, I think we've come to the realization that it just needs to be put up because people are so confused by what to do with that location. We're going to provide some guidance.
Thank you for the clarification.
Any other questions? Seeing none, I've got a motion and a second to approve the recommendation to waive the bid process and award the Wixom Sidewalk construction project to Great Lakes Contracting of Waterford, Michigan, in the amount not to exceed $52,717.09. Roll call vote, please.
Member Sharp,
Aye.
Councilmember Smiley,
Aye.
Mayor Beagle,
Yes.
Deputy Mayor Resnick,
Aye.
Councilmember Behrman,
Yes.
Councilmember Gotchall,
Yes.
Councilmember Grenlund Fox,
Yes.
7 yes.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Moving on to new business number 10 is a request for authorization to participate with the Michigan Intergovernmental Trade Network, MITN, to sell surplus city vehicles and miscellaneous tools by auction and designate Tim Sigma as authorized agent for the sale of this property. Do I have a motion?
So moved.
Support?
Support.
Any questions? All right. Very good. Seeing none, I've got a motion and a second to approve the request for authorization to participate with the Michigan Intergovernmental Trade Network, MITN, to sell surplus city vehicles and miscellaneous tools by auction and designate Tim Sigma as authorized agent for sale of this property. Roll call vote, please, Madam Clerk.
Councilmember Smiley,
Aye.
Mayor Beagle,
Yes.
Deputy Mayor Resnick,
Aye.
Councilmember Behrman,
Yes.
Councilmember Gotchall,
Yes.
Councilmember Grenlund Fox,
Yes.
Councilmember Sharp,
Aye.
7 yes.
Thank you.
Thank you. Item number 11, year-end budget amendments and requests for commitments of fund balance to comply with the Uniform Budget Act 621 and Governmental Accounting Standards Board Pronouncement Gatsby 54. Marilyn Stamper, thanks for your patience.
Sure, I was feeling a little left out this evening. This
Saving the
report is,
best for last.
thank you. This report is basically, since we're nearing the end of our fiscal year, this meeting is the last opportunity we have to amend the budget to conform with guidelines set forth by the state to not let any of our funds or our general fund departments go into a deficit. So this report gives all those budget amendments to modify the fiscal year 1920 budget. In addition, we also request at year end to commit a portion of fund balance in the event we do end up with any shortages in other funds after the close of a fiscal year. We don't anticipate that happening, but we did have that occur a few years ago in our safety path fund. And when that does occur, it causes a lot of issues with the state. You have to submit a deficit elimination plan, and you're basically not in compliance of what the state sets forth for us. So that's basically a safety net that we put in place a few years ago to allow us to transfer that money if we needed to after we close the fiscal year. But again, I don't anticipate that happening. We just put that in place just in case, but it will not happen this year. So that's about it. If you have any questions on the amendments.
Councilmember Grenlund Fox.
Hi, Marilyn.
Hello.
Just a couple questions about the reason for the higher than budgeted fringes in several of the areas. I understand the fire department because of the new contract, but there's some other ones that are higher, and I'm wondering what the reason for that is.
There were a few that were payouts of vacation upon retirement, and some of those and unused vacation time. I'd have to look specifically at some of them. Local road fund, that would be, we had additional hours that were worked that were attributed to local road fund or major road fund. So we increased those. Basically, we're increasing the amount that we're attributing to those funds.
Based on the overtime. Okay,
That's
so
correct.
the other one specifically in Okay, so the local road and then the other departments, that would have been for payout of sick or vacation.
Yeah, like economic development, we had a retirement, so there was a payout there. And some slight modifications with rates and benefit coverages that could change.
Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
You're welcome. Anybody else? All right, seeing none, I got a motion and a second to approve the year-end budget amendments and requests for commitments of fund balance to comply with the Uniform Budget Act 621 and Governmental Accounting Standards Board pronouncement, Gatsby 54. Roll call vote, please.
I'm sorry, Mr. Mayor, who made that motion and seconded it?
You didn't motion and second it.
I thought
Is it a motionable thing? We definitely did not. I remember.
I'm slipping up tonight. Do I have a motion?
Oh,
So we did. Okay, Smiley, and we have a second?
I'll second.
All right, Smiley Berman. All right, now we can have a
Thank
roll
you.
call vote, please. Thank you.
Mayor Beagle,
Yes.
Deputy Mayor Resnick,
Yes,
Councilmember Behrman,
Yes.
Councilmember Gotchall,
Yes.
Councilmember Grenlin Fox,
Yes.
Councilmember Sharp,
Aye.
Councilmember Smiley,
All right,
7 yes.
Thank you. Next up is a request to waive the bid process and execute a contract with Comcast Business for the data and cable services at the Department of Public Works, City Hall, and Fire Station in the amount of $5,106 annually. Do I have a motion?
so moved.
Support?
support.
Discussion? Councilmember Smiley.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Just a quickie question. First of all, this is great, and thank you to BPI for discovering or creating this upgrade with savings. I see the contract is for 24 months. Is this a promotional offer, or I mean, almost 40%? That's phenomenal. I'm just wondering if after 24 months, does it go up back up considerably, or is it? It's not like your typical cable, promotion.
My knowledge of what's transpired with this reduction in costs is it was related to actually a Comcast reach out to us that they had some savings to offer to us. And that's when BPI engaged in the conversations with Comcast. So I'm guessing there is a promotional aspect of it, but I don't have any information as to whether this is a 2-year only kind of thing. There's been no representations made on that front. But it is about a 39% cost
2 years is pretty good. I mean, even if it does jump up in 2 years, we can work with them again on it. But that's
Right.
I was just curious if it was a promotional thing or something to get us in there. That's
Yeah,
all I had.
We're
Thanks.
right to suspect that. I think that's exactly what it was.
Anybody else? All right, I do have a motion and a second to approve and approve the request to waive the bid process and execute a contract with Comcast Business for data and cable services at the Department of Public Works, City Hall, and the Fire Station in the amount of $5,106 annually. Roll call vote, please.
Deputy Mayor Resnick,
Aye,
Councilmember Behrman,
Yes.
Councilmember Gotchall,
Yes.
Councilmember Grenlin Fox,
Yes.
Councilmember Sharp,
Aye.
Councilmember Smiley,
All right.
Mayor Beagle,
Yes.
7 yes.
Very good, thank you. Now on to item number 13, a recommendation to support a resolution temporary authorizing an outdoor seating permit process for restaurants and bars in reaction to the COVID-19 pandemic and the associated impacts on such businesses. Do I have a motion?
So moved.
Support?
Support.
Manager Brown.
Yeah, so a little bit of an overview on this. As you know, this is a big topic with businesses of this type and businesses in downtown settings and other things of that nature. And it's something that we've seen various examples of what actions were taken by other communities. We try to take information from a variety of sources, bring that together. My first cut at that was what was provided to you in the council packet. Subsequent to that, after the attorney received some yet more information from another source, there was some other tweaks that she made to the resolution, which is before you tonight, that was provided during the afternoon today. It got longer, so that's what happens when an attorney gets involved. I don't want to take a shot at the attorneys there, but that's what happened there. Was I cut it down from some other examples, and it got moved back up with this revision process. There is a cost aspect that is reflected in there. That reflects some diversity of opinion on that as well. There are places where it was done at zero cost, and there were places where it was done at a pretty high cost, in my estimation. And the consistent factor in both of those examples were that it was an in-house function for the inspection staff that were going to be responsible for that. So there's a little bit more leeway in that regard when you have control of those costs, right? If you have somebody who's on salary, whether they're out doing an inspection or not, they're on salary, and those expenses are being realized one way or the other, and they're really not varying with the activity. The revenue can be impacted by that activity, but the costs are not. With our model, where we have Safe Built that comes in and does the work for us on the inspection side of things, when they bring somebody in, they literally do bring somebody in. It's not somebody who's salaried or anything like that. They're sending somebody out for that work. They're incurring a cost for that work. And to be fair, with Safe Built, I decided to talk with them about how low we could get those costs, but still provide them some reimbursement of their expenses. So roughly speaking, it's in the ballpark of 2/3, 1/3 of the permit fee that would be realized, 2/3 by Safe Built and approximately 1/3 by the city. So if on a $50 expense, that's about $33 that Safe Built would realize for them to bring somebody in, make the visit out, do the paperwork, and everything else that would be associated with it. I thought that was a pretty low cost in a way, to be fair with them, because they do incur those extra costs when this work is done. So that's where the $50 fee came from. I wanted to keep it as low as possible, but also be fair with our partners, Safe Built, on that. So that's pretty much all the detail that I wanted to go over. If there's any questions on it, I'll do my best to answer anything that you might have. It's really just an effort to allow our businesses a greater chance to succeed in this environment when they're just now given the chance to reopen after a long period of time, but still with tightly restricted, markedly decreased capacity on the inside. When you can open up additional outdoor seating, you can now open up additional possibilities for revenue and help them offset their costs and stay viable and be successful in the future. And that's what we're looking to do, to be partners with our business community here with this action.
Councilmember Grilla Fox.
Hey, Steve. Can you just talk a little bit about what areas this will cover and what the plan is as far as will it be going, the seating be going into a parking lot, or will it be going out towards the road, or what is that going to look like?
Yeah, so it's citywide. We have a feeling there's going to be certain areas where we're going to see a lot of activity and most areas where we won't, but it is citywide as an opportunity. And it's pretty open in terms of what they can propose, but it's going to be reviewed through our Safe Built partnership there for safety. It'll be reviewed with our consultants like CIB, and it'll be reviewed with existing staff as well for safety purposes. So it addresses a lot of different things. The potential of somebody asking for something on sidewalks, which is something that would be problematic in my estimation and not likely to be approved, but it does afford them the opportunity to put those kind of requests into their application to allow us to review it and get back to them about what's going to be allowed and what's not going to be allowed. So it's pretty open-ended, but it's going to be subject to the controls of keeping people safe and making sure that there's adequate safety features in play to keep a bad outcome from happening.
So more than likely, it would probably go out into a parking lot.
Correct. That would be one of the things that I would expect to be one of the biggest pieces of activity associated with that. Correct.
Okay. Thank you.
Yep.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
You're welcome. Councilmember Smiley.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. So Steve, I take, first of all, I'm really glad we're, doing what we can to help out our bars and restaurants. And it sounds like every instance is going to be kind of is going to be its own unique thing to deal with. And everything's got to, go through the city so that, we control what people might try to do. And I guess I just wanted to confirm that that's what's going on. We want to help them. We want to make it, make them be able to expand their footprint, or however it is. But they gotta, we gotta keep it under control.
Yeah, it's totally on a case-by-case basis,
Case by-
depending on the circumstances that are before us and what the parameters are in terms of what space is available and what can be done to ensure safety and ensure that everything is done in a way that keeps people safe, as well as gives the business the opportunity to serve more customers. I think, it's for the benefit of the residents as well, and the people around us. They want to come here to dine at these establishments and to be clientele for them, because people are itching to get out, if you will, and we want to afford them the greatest opportunity we can and still stay compliant with the rules that are going to be in place for a while. And the time period I should mention on there is through October, because we don't know when this is going to end, and there's language in there to protect us that if circumstances change and the regulatory environment changes, then this could be brought to an end early as well, depending on how things play out. So I think we've done a good job of trying to address different eventualities here with what's before us. We've capitalized on the work of other people on this. Invitation's always a good indication of appreciation for work that people have done. And this takes advantage of a lot of those different places where they've done some work on this. And we did change things up to make it appropriate for Wixom, but it's been a good groundwork for us to work with.
I'm glad you brought that up. October is kind of what we're setting up to be, what people are aiming for. And we can always extend that or tweak that time if, God forbid, we're dealing with this longer.
Absolutely. There's provisions in there for extension by council with additional action as well.
Great. Thank you.
Thank you.
Councilmember Sharp.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. City Manager Brown, I know we talked about the $50. I feel bad about having to charge, although I recognize that there are real costs. Help me feel better about it. Any opportunity that these applicants can get reimbursement through the COVID project money or Oakland County or anything like that as part of their total? Are we past all that now? I mean, and have you done any, has anybody reached out to you? Have you talked to any of the business owners? Are they feeling good about 50, or does it sound like too much? I know it's in the middle of a variety of communities, but what's the latest?
Yeah, I would call it at the very low end of what most communities are. There are situations where it's zero, but the fees that I've seen charged are way beyond 50 in some cases as well. So we tried to stay at the low end. Something we could look at is whether, the portion of that expense is going to go to the city, and that's something that perhaps we can look into about whether there's anything to be creative on that front. And I hadn't yet formulated my thoughts on that completely about how we might be able to handle that, but I'm going to try to see what we can do on that front. Perhaps we can get it cut down into that $30 neighborhood by virtue of that. Because again, it's not really about trying to realize any revenue on this. The idea is to help the businesses, and the less the fee is, the greater the help. So we'll take a look at how we can get creative on that front. And I'm pretty confident we might be able to do something there. I'll have to come back to you with the details and give you some info on it. But that's one move that I would like to take a look at and see if we can handle it that way.
Okay, thank you.
Councilmember Berman.
I guess my only question would be I've seen a lot of restaurants in different areas popping up with tents in their parking lot. Are they allowed to then serve alcohol, or is that a whole different process that they got to go through with the Liquor Control Commission?
Yeah, there's provisions for serving of alcohol as well in here, and it calls for different things where you have to get involved with requirements of the Michigan Liquor Control Act and related laws, administrative regulations, it references all of those things. So it makes provisions for that to be a possibility, but subject to those outside restrictions that are beyond the control of the city.
So I was just curious on, how many people are actually going to take advantage of it if they can't have alcohol out in the parking lot, or if that will be a more cumbersome process. I mean, I'm in complete support of us doing this. I just wasn't sure what the actual utilization and outcome would be, besides us saying, look, we did this for you in case you want it.
Yeah, and I've been informed of various things that are happening at the state level in terms of legislative fixes for that too, and similar relaxations of requirements and things like that would relate and tie together with this particular action. So I'm thinking that people are recognizing that, and I think they're going to see about getting some things completed at the state level that would maybe afford that opportunity, subject to the support. But I know that these bills have been introduced on that front. So,
thank you.
Anybody else? All right, I've got a motion and a second to approve the recommendation to support a resolution temporary authorizing an outdoor seating permit process for restaurants and bars in reaction to the COVID-19 pandemic and the associated impacts on such businesses. Roll call vote, please.
Councilmember Behrman,
Yes.
Councilmember Gotchall,
Yes.
Councilmember Grunland Fox,
Yes.
Councilmember Sharp,
Aye.
Councilmember Smiley,
Aye.
Mayor Beagle,
Yes.
Deputy Mayor Resnick,
Aye.
7 yes.
Thank you.
Thank you.
All right, we're done with new business now. We're on to the second call to the public, and I'll remind everybody what the rules to call the public are. The public shall address the council during the call to the public, which shall be included on the agenda immediately after correspondence and again immediately after new business. The first call to the public immediately after correspondence shall be limited to agenda items only. A person shall not address the council in excess of 5 minutes unless the time is extended by a majority vote of council present. Persons wishing to address the council shall identify themselves in the place of residence and shall state their reasoning for addressing the council. And all comments made by the public shall be made directly to the council. Since this is a electronic meeting, there's two ways you can raise your hand. One, by pressing *9 if you are using a telephone, or you can use the raise hand part on the Zoom meeting. Ken, do we have anybody for the second call to the public?
We do, Mr. Mayor. I'm going to start out with the last 4 digits are 0828. Again, please state your name and address for the record. And I have unmuted your line now.
Hi. Okay, let's try this again. This is Dan Aubrey. I'm at 3569 Barberry. As a follow-up to my question, I'm sorry for speaking out of the turn at the first opening. I called a month ago during the Zoom platform meeting that they had, and has there been any feedback from the developer or the builder at the Stonegate Village there on Wixom Road concerning the bright street lights within the community itself? Does anybody have any information on that?
Ken, do you want to address that, or?
Yeah, I'll talk to him, Mr. Mayor. If I come to the building official, they told me we're going to unscrew or detach the light bulbs that were immediately behind her house in the cul-de-sac. And that a security issue, and there are homes going in there. They feel that some of that they have security for the home. But they did tell me they shut the lights off immediately behind their property.
Is this just broken up for me?
Yeah, Ken is doesn't have a very good connection, but I talked to Ken, and I think what he's just repeating that I think they unscrewed the light bulbs on the areas directly behind the Hid Creek subdivision that are in between the houses there in Wixom Road, and for security reasons, they're going to leave the lights on the one on cul-de-sac on Charms, because they're construction and they're digging holes and stuff like that. So they feel that as a safety issue, they'll be leaving, they need lights, so they'll leave those lights on.
Yeah, so Mr. Aubrey, if he's got some additional questions on that, I'd encourage him to give me a call tomorrow and we can talk it over with Ken Pike and go through the full explanation there. But I think the mayor covered it pretty well, actually, because I had the same information.
Yeah, I just wasn't sure if they were planning to install a lesser wattage bulb or put some type of shielding on or not. And I understand the reason for the lighting. It's just I don't think it should be at the cost of the residents, at least back here that back to that. And they're fairly bright. If anybody would like to come over in the night and stand in any of our backyards and look out toward the development, you will realize that you are completely blinded and cannot see anything whatsoever. So we basically find ourselves having to sit with our backs to the development facing our house. just because of the brightness and whatnot. But I do appreciate your input on that, and thank you very much.
You're welcome. Are there any other calls of public comments? Tim?
There are, Mayor Beagle. Actually, the phone number with last four digits of 8428. We will unmute your line, and again, please state your name and address for the record. Go ahead, caller.
Good evening, Council. This is Bill Campbell at 3225 Potter Road. I called in last council meeting, and I was looking for some feedback to see first if you received the links to the videos that I had sent, and overall feedback on next steps for the excessive speeding on Potter and Wixom Road.
Do we have Ron Moore on the line or no, Ken?
We do. Ron Moore, I'm going to ask to start your video.
Yes, good evening, Mr. Campbell. I did receive the videos that you've been sending me periodically over the course of the last several weeks. I can tell you that beginning next week, the traffic safety officer is going to be back in that capacity. We removed him from that capacity due to COVID-19 restrictions. We were following CDC guidance on that, and we were trying to minimize the number of citizen contacts that the police officers had, obviously dealing with emergencies, obviously dealing with overtly reckless behavior. But I can tell you, Mr. Campbell, that beginning next week, starting Monday, the traffic safety officer is going to be back in that capacity. And I'm happy to give you a call tomorrow to discuss some of your other ideas that you had concerning the speed limit on Wixom Road and some of the additional signage that you had brought up on Potter Road. I'm more than happy to talk to you about that, about all those ideas that you brought up at last week's meeting.
Thank you so much. We really appreciate it.
Yeah.
Thank you.
And Bill, I don't know if I have your phone number, but I know I have your email address. Drop me a quick email, please, if you would, with your phone number, so I can give you a shout tomorrow.
Great. Thank you, sir. I appreciate it.
Talk to you tomorrow.
Thank you, everyone.
You're welcome. Anybody else?
I see no other virtual hands raised at this point, Mr. Mayor. Again, if anyone in the telephone audience would like to speak, please press *9 on your keypad. And I see no other hands raised at this time, Mr. Mayor.
All right, thank you. Seeing none, we'll close the second call to the public and move on to city manager comments. City Manager Brown.
Yeah, so just to highlight some of the work anniversaries that we have going on, I wanted to comment on a wide range of those. On the middle edge of things, we've got Kathy Venegas in our Community Services Department with 7 years of service. On the high end, we've got Marilyn Stamper, our own finance director, who is feeling neglected tonight. So let's say happy birthday to Marilyn so she can feel better about her Tuesday night. And then we also have Louis McCaig in the police department with 24 years. So congratulations to everybody that's celebrating their work anniversaries on that front. We appreciate the service to the city. And truly, I find our employees to be very devoted to the city and very devoted to doing a great job for people. And that makes all the difference to me and to the people that we serve. So we appreciate that. The other thing I wanted to mention was some information on reopen toolkits. You had seen some information on that where reopening toolkits with personal protective equipment were provided to businesses in the downtown area. That got expanded outside of the downtown area due to continued availability from the county. And because of that, we distributed about 41 plus. It's been more today, but it's probably in the mid 40s neighborhood today with different reopening kits that were supplied to different businesses outside of the downtown area as well. So I wanted to say we appreciate that to Oakland County. And I also wanted to say thank you to Cheryl Lucas and Anna Kulis Rosenthal in my office, who did all the heavy lifting on getting those kits out. I started off on the first day and took the first 2 or 3, and that was about the last ones that I had to deliver because they've just been all over it and doing a great job with it. So thank you to Cheryl and to Anna, and thank you to the county again for their generosity in making that available to our businesses in the city of Wixom. I know they appreciate it. We had a lot of thanks from people, and that was pretty much the only 2 items that I wanted to cover. There's a set of dates to remember out there. Summer concerts, we've made the decision to cancel the initial one in July, but to try to hopefully be able to proceed with the next one. We got some additional feedback today from different ways to handle that, and we're hopeful that we'll be able to get started on the concert series again after that first one in July has been canceled. So we're optimistic about that and look forward to getting back to normal with those kind of things happening in the city here in the future soon.
All right. Very good. Moving on to council comments. Councilmember Gotcho.
I don't have any at this time. Thank you.
Very good. Councilmember Berman.
Just it's nice to see that we have such a plethora of employees that have been with us for the long term. It was nice even this week. I had some questions personally. Ken took the time to walk me through the process and doing some things with my home. I'm sure that the time that he took with me is the same time that he would take with any of our residents. And it's good that we have people that care about taking care of our citizens, and I appreciate that.
Thank you. Councilmember Sharp.
Thank you, Mayor Beagle. I have nothing tonight. Thank you.
Councilmember Grenlund Fox.
Thank you, Mayor. First of all, I'd just like to congratulate all those that are celebrating their work anniversaries and say thank you. And then I had a couple questions for City Manager Brown. Do we have any developments on the on future discussions regarding the fire department staffing and then the recruitment and retention plan?
Yeah, I'm looking to have some additional conversations with council about that, and I'm guessing it will be at the next meeting, unless we decide to do something even sooner than that, if we think the timing is right and appropriate for that. But otherwise, it would be at the next meeting. Unfortunately, we have like a 3-week break here, which is something that's caused me a problem on a couple of different fronts with things that I would like to have had handled a little bit sooner. So we might take a look at whether we do something even sooner than that, but there are some conversations that are being had in terms of how to handle a few things on the contract front to make sure that we think of those kind of things ahead of time as opposed to thinking of it afterwards. So optimistic that we'll be ready to have a conversation on that as soon as next week. And then we can decide from there if we do a special meeting to try to add some time to our ability to get started sooner.
Okay, thank you. And then do we have any idea when City Hall will be reopening?
Yeah, I'm finalizing some things today. Ron Moore and I spent some time looking at a variety of things today that we're going to look to put into play. There are a couple of questions I think I kind of mentioned earlier regarding some nuts and bolts questions like how to handle restrooms and things of those natures that are just difficult to deal with. But I'm anticipating that we could have a soft opening as early as next week, and otherwise it's getting started the week after would be when we would look to fully open.
Now, when you say soft opening, are you looking at having residents or people coming into the building department make appointments as opposed to just showing up?
Correct. That could be an interim step. That's correct. And then, see how things go through that, get some learning experiences under our belt about things that come up in those circumstances, and then formalize it with the meetings or the week after that.
Okay. I guess that's all I have. Thank you very much. Thank you, Mayor.
You're welcome. Thank you.
Councilmember Smiley.
Thank you, sir. Got a couple things. I'd like to send out a little love and appreciation to retiring teachers in the Wall Lake Consolidated School District. 3 in particular for teachers here within Wixom. At Loon Lake Elementary, Tracy Brenner, 25 plus years. Sarah Banks, Sharon Collins, 27-year secretary, and Pamela Helm, 31 years. I didn't forget Wixom L. They didn't have any retire this year, which is great. So thanks to them. Also, thank you to all the mayoral reappointments. Wixom appreciate your time and efforts and service to the community. What else I got here? Oh, I'd like to point out my my awesome new tie that I got for Father's Day. lets me show my support for law enforcement. And my family got this, for me from a great company, the Thin Blue Line, which is headquartered right here in Wixom. Finally, everyone, please have a happy and safe Independence Day. Don't make Chief Roberts work too hard. Thank you.
You're welcome. Deputy Mayor Resnick.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I also want to thank all those mayoral appointments and reappointments. Thank you for your volunteerism. I know there's a lot of work involved with that. Just want to confirm the demolition of the house in front of the Munshaw Barn is tomorrow. Is that correct? Mr. Brown could verify that?
My date that I had was the 25th.
The 25th, okay.
Right.
2 days.
Which would put us at Thursday, I believe.
Good. I think that'll be a welcome action and get rid of that eyesore. Another thing I just want to mention that riding through the portion of the airline trail, I noticed that the locks for the bollards are perpendicular to the trailway, which in my opinion poses a bit of a safety hazard because you could catch a foot when your pedal's in the down position if you came too close to it. If you go to the West Bloomfield side, when it turns into the gravel, the bollards there run in line with the trail. I don't know if that's worth mentioning to the Trailway Council at the next meeting. I don't know if they got installed wrong by the contractor or if that's for some reason by design. So I'll maybe make a note of that. I think, Steve, you and Deanna represent us on the Trailway Council.
Yeah, I'll be sure to bring that up.
And then I'm encouraged now with the resolution to temporarily authorize the outdoor seating expansion because I, for one, will feel more comfortable going to a restaurant again if it's in an outdoor setting. So I hope we have a lot of the restaurants downtown open that up and expand a little the areas and parking lots and whatnot. So with that, thank you and happy Independence Day, everybody.
Thank you. I too would like to thank all the mayoral reappointments tonight. I appreciate all their effort. It's a volunteer and they don't get paid for what they do and they do a great job for us. And just like it was mentioned tonight throughout with the Planning Commission, how great they are. Appreciate that. It was great to see the shout out that Tim Sigma and Matt from F&V and Russ Walker from Safeville got from a couple of our residents who hooked up the city water, and they appreciated all the help they got from the city through that effort and through this time, and they were impressed with that. But it was a great service provided by our employees, but that was something we already knew that all our employees do. And I would just like to thank and congratulate the 11 work anniversaries we have here. And it says Marilyn's been here 23 years, but I think if you count all the hours that she puts in, it's probably like about more like 29 or 30. But thank you guys for all that you do. And with that, do I have a motion to adjourn?
So moved.
Support.
All right. All in favor, signify by saying aye.
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 Opposed? Thanks for your patience tonight, guys. Long meeting. Thank you. Have a good night.
Take care.
Bye, y'all.
Thank you, folks. Have a good night.
I just have to let you two wind down here.